Welcome back to Primed for Battle. Today we're painting Tahlia Vedra from the Cities of Sigmar range. She's a wonderful kit and she was voted by the viewers, so I had a great time painting her. We're going to split it up into two parts. I'm going to go through painting the Manticore first, and then once I've done that we'll go through doing Tahlia and just touching on the paints that we haven't already done on the Manticore itself. So let's jump in. I've started off with a black prime for the Manticore itself, and then I've done a dry brush all over with Dawnstone. So just get a nice sturdy dry brush, and you want to just, it's a fairly heavy dry brush, and just flick the brush backwards and forwards over all of the texture on the model. This will really highlight all of the raised areas. There you can see that it's now highlighted the raised areas in grey, and now that we're going to go over it with Corax white over the more prominent raised areas. So this will be most of the top of the Manticore. You want to get over the feathers and stuff to really bring out the nice details in those, and all of the sort of outside areas of the legs, on the tail, etc. Then we're coming through with some Rhinox hide for the base. This is just building a nice brown layer over the entirety of the base, and you want to do that for all of the stones and groundwork on the base. If you've watched any of my previous painting videos, you'll see that I have a bit of a color process that I go through for the bases as far as the stone and groundwork. So the next paint I use is Doombull Brown, and I just use a cheap brush and just a heavy sort of wet dry brush, so to speak, flicking backwards and forwards over all of that area, just to give it a really rough coating. Then I come back and do the same process with Tau Light Ochre. And this is just really building up different shades and tones on all of the stone and gravel and stuff around the base of the miniature. From there, I'm doing similar again with Thunderhawk Blue, but this time I'm doing it much lighter than the previous colors. I don't want it to overpower the others, but there'll certainly be areas where it's a little bit more prominent than others. Really doesn't need to be consistent. You're going for a dirty, weathered stone look. From there, I've come back to Dawnstone and I've dry brushed this over all of the base again. Much lighter than I did on the Manticore itself though. Next up, I'll come back to Corax White, and again, dry brushing very lightly over all of the stone. You need to be mindful with Corax White and other white paints that it can be very overpowering, so you want to make sure that you get most of the paint off the brush before doing the dry brush. Less is more, you can always do more coats. From there, I've gone to Coelia Green Shade, and I'm using this in all the cracks and areas where the stone has come into contact with the ground or might have some mossy kind of build up or moldy build up. And then I'm using some Cassandora Yellow, much more sparingly than the green. I'm using this on some of the raised areas as sort of a sun bleached maybe, yeah, just all of the higher areas very lightly coated with Coelia Green Shade, Cassandora Yellow. Next step, I've gone with Sigvald Burgundy, which is one of the key colors of my Cities of Sigmar scheme, and I'm doing that on all of the cloaks. You can see I've done it a little bit on Tahlia there, all of the areas that I'm doing in the burgundy, getting that out of the way first. It's a very heavy color, much easier to fix paints that have painted over it than it over others. And then I'm getting the Black Legion details out of the way. So this is the chainmail, all the metallic areas that you're going to come back through, but also any areas that you just want to be black. So you want to get the sword, some of the jewelry and things, the chain. Now starting on the fur and the feathers. Starting with Skeleton Horde, you want to apply this over all of the lion fur, the mane, the skin, etc., all of the face, but also the frontmost layer of the wings. So they're the small feathers along the front. You can see that I've done that all across the top there, and it's given it a nice muted brown look. Next I'm going to come through with Gore Grunter fur though, which is a nice chestnutty warm brown. I'm doing that on the secondary layer of feathers. So what I've done on mine is I've worked out how far I want to work that down, and then I've worked across to give myself a boundary to paint within. You can see there I'm working across, and then I'll work my way back, just so that I can set my limits and manage where I'm painting. And that's come together quite nicely. The last step is the bottom or furthest out layer of feathers, and these are the big feathers, and we're going to use Basilicanum Grey for this. Now over the previously dry brushed feathers, the grey is going to give it a nice dark blackish kind of look without hiding those highlighted details. So I think it brings out a nice look on those feathers. You can see that there. And next I'm going to go through the leathers. Now in this instance I've used snakebite leather. In some of the leather straps and things I've also used some Garagax Sewer. There's various browns that are effective for this, so pick and choose based on what you have in your collection. And from there, I'm going into the mouth of the manticore. I'm using some Volupus Pink for the tongue. Don't worry too much if you get it elsewhere in the mouth or on the teeth. We've got some more work we'll do on the mouth later. And now I'm going to go through with Ironbreaker, and I'm going to pick out all the chainmail and steel areas of the metallics that we want to do. So there's the chainmail on the sides or flanks of the manticore. But then there's also the chain, there's a few other metallic silver details, such as the harness, and also some areas on Tahlia, such as her sword. And then similarly, going through now with the Balthazar Gold for the gold metallic details. So I've mixed it up a little bit. The part of the harness on the mouth of the manticore is in gold, some of it is in the Ironbreaker. There's also some gold details on the sides and on Tahlia as well. And then I'm coming again back to Corax White to paint in the armor plating on the side of the manticore. There's also a plate on the back of it near the tail, and some little dangly charms on the side. And then also some areas on Tahlia, although I've done her in a prime of Wraithbone. So now I'm using some Caribou Crimson in the mouth and painting all of the inside of the mouth and around the gums, everywhere that wasn't the tongue, which was done in the pink. And now I'm using Basilicanum Grey again. I've decided at this point to do the tail. I was uncertain how I wanted to do it, but I've gone with a base level. I'm using the Basilicanum Grey to fill in the tail. Then as a little detail, I've used some Ungor flesh just to accentuate the nose, just based off some pictures that I looked at of lions. And then I've used some Karak stone to fill in the teeth. the teeth, and also the claws and nails, or the bone areas. Then I've gone over just the raised areas with Ushabti bone, just sort of as a highlight for those teeth and claws. Apologies if it's losing focus in some spots, I had some issues with the camera. Next, I've painted the eyes in with Black Templar and then come back with Avalanche Sunset and just done a nice round yellow dot in the center of the eye. You can try a few times with that. The yellow dot can be a little bit larger, sort of filling up half of the eye almost. And then I've gone through with Agrax Earthshade and just finished off the detail on those claws and teeth by coating them in a nice coat of Agrax. Now going back to the tail, I've started with a light dry brush of corn red from about 3/4 of the way down the tail right up to the top, leaving just the grey at the sort of very base. Then I've gone a little bit further up the tail with Mephiston red and dry brush that from about halfway. Following the same trend, using Evil Sun Scarlet from about 1/3 of the way from the top of the tail. And just finished off with some Wild Rider red just on the very tip of the tail, just to really accentuate that poison tip. Now I've gone through with some Nuln Oil and just done all of the metallics on the Manticore, as well as the whites and the leather straps and stuff, just leaving the not doing the fur or the feathers. Now we're on to Tahlia. So I've started with the throne and I've used wildwood for all of the timber areas, so all through pretty much most of the chair. Don't worry about the metallic areas, coat those in wildwood as well. That'll help build a better base coat for the metallics. You just want to leave the bone areas, which are the skeletons at the top, and then also the flags, which we've done in the Sigvold Burgundy. And then I've come through with Skeleton Horde on the faces within the back of the chair. We'll add some extra details to those by just colouring in the hair and also the metallics on them with the silver and golds. Then we use some Dark Oath flesh on Tahlia's face. Again, apologies for the camera focus. I had a little bit of trouble here, but I've just done a nice, not too thick coat of Dark Oath flesh on Tahlia's face. She has some nice details on there, and the Dark Oath really sort of brings it out. Then to differentiate some of the underside of the cape from the rest of the white, I've come through with some Ushabti bone and just applied that over the underside areas of the cape and also the around her neck. Then in the sort of flame carvings, the twin comet carvings on the sword, I filled that in with some Magmadroth flame, which is a nice bright single pigment orange. And then with some Avalanche Sunset, I've just done some very thin lines on the inside of those flames, just to give a nice sort of burning effect to some degree. Now the hair, I started with some Gore-Grunter fur as a base coat for all of the hair, and then I've gone up to a Jakiro orange, just sort of really picking out the raised areas and some of the corners and things and where the light might catch it. I'm really just going through all the hair, just some nice lines and detail picking out, just following what they've sculpted on the hair. Then I've come back with some Ungor flesh and just gone for, within some of those previous highlights, just the very tips and where it curves and where some areas where the light might catch the hair. Just really accentuating the flowing locks that she has. And then I've gone over the entire hair with Reichland Flesh Shade. So this, in my mind, has given her a bit of a redhead sort of look. Kind of like, almost like she's a Irish warrior. And there we have it. That's the key points that I've gone through with Tahlia. There's some extra details there that you can pick out, such as the skull on the back and some of the tapestries and things, but what a great model. I hope you've enjoyed watching. As always, it really helps when you like and subscribe, but I hope to see you next time on the next video, which will be Ionis Cryptborn, which is another fan voted video. But thanks again, and bye for now.